Hello, I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues, and anything that goes along with those issues, such as politics, other religious aspects, Bible, theology, philosophy, etc. I also want to give a shout out to the Rabyd Nation, all of you that have subscribed, and especially my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys. Appreciate every single one of you. You guys are awesome. First of all, I want to start off with an apology. There's been a lot of mix-ups the last couple of weeks, mostly due to technical issues. At first I was kind of disheartened that my live stream didn't really work all that well, because for some reason my rendering program isn't really working with some of the other things that I do, so it was just bad. And then I tried to do a couple other videos after that, and I recorded a bunch of footage, and then when I went to look at the footage, a lot of it didn't have sound. And then when I did finally figure out what the sound issue was, I had a really bad echo on another recording. So I'm actually recording on a different software this time, and it looks like everything's working out okay. So thank you for everybody for your patience, and just I appreciate all the support and all the comments back and forth. Nobody's really been angry, and I kind of appreciate that to no end. So thank you very much. Some channel news. Basically, I think I can do a couple videos a week, and I think what's going to happen is on Saturday I am going to record the Rabyd Atheist Sunday show, and then I will be there as much as possible for the premiere of the show. I want to thank everybody for sticking around, but the Sunday show is going to kind of change a little bit. And then I'm going to do another video, probably maybe 20 minutes long, about an issue or something during the week. So I think that's kind of the plan, that I'll do the Sunday show recording on Saturday, and then do another weekly episode just for on an issue-based thing during the week. I'll record that on Sunday. So that'll at least give me a couple videos a week. I can do it on the weekend, and it's a little bit more time on the weekend than other things. Things have kind of settled down with my job, because I'm kind of getting into a routine, and I'm beginning to understand what's expected out of me, and so on and so forth. So we have that bit handled. Now the Sunday show is going to be a little bit different in the sense that I'm still going to do a little bit of Sunday school, where I talk about the next passage in the Bible as I work through the Bible. I'm going to do that a little bit, and then I want to talk about an issue, some sort of message issue that that I think is interesting. And I also want to talk about deconversion every Sunday. I want to talk about a deconversion issue. Today I'm going to kind of do a deconversion issue when I talk about depression, because it's kind of what's kept me away from doing videos, and a lot of other things that I enjoy is my depression. So I just wanted to let you know that then after that, the deconversion issue, I'm going to do something a little fun. Recently, one of my friends has started posting a crap ton of Christian memes. And what I want to do is start looking at Christian memes and basically dissecting them and having a little fun with them. And then, of course, I'm going to end with your comments. I'm going to try to keep up with the comments. The Sunday show, I don't really have any concern about length, is what I'm saying. And so I'm going to deal with the comments for the week if I find them interesting. I'm not going to deal with every single bloody one, because it gets to be a lot. Once the show gets rolling, there just is so many comments. But if you really feel there's something you need to deal with or whatever, just let me know, and I will deal with that issue, and maybe it'll become a full video during the week later if I feel the issue is really worth looking at and talking about. So that's kind of where that's going to go. The other weekly video is going to be more issue related. where I'm going to talk about something that's an issue or just an overall arching deconversion issue that comes up a lot, or anything else that comes to mind, because I realize that sometimes not everything fits into a long program on Sunday, and I want to have a little bit more stuff for the algorithm. Here's the thing about it, and I want to talk about the fact that now we're well over 600 subscribers. I didn't really celebrate that. This video is kind of a celebration of that. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for your continued, keep subbing. I appreciate it. Every time I get a subscriber, it's still very, very rewarding to me. But I've been away so long because of this piece of shit thing called depression. And I have had depression issues probably pretty much most of my life. Those of you that know my background, I grew up as an only child. I wasn't like this super athletic kid. I was skinny, I was tall. I filled out later in life. Now nobody really messes with me. But back then, I was also kind of weird. I was the religious kid. Which means I never hung out with my bad friends. I never got to experience a lot of life, and that hindered all the way through high school. Hell, I didn't even go to dances or my prom or anything because my religion forbade dancing. So it's kind of, indicative of the fact that depression, when people ask me, what do you think the source of your depression is? Because I get it all the time. Well, you're depressed because you're away from Jesus. My Christian friends go at it, and no, I was depressed more when I was in the faith, because my faith tells me that I'm a dirty, no good, rotten sinner. There's nothing good in me. There's none righteous, no, not one, and on the fucking list goes, where you are basically taught from the time you're a little kid that there's nothing good about you, that you're evil, and if it wasn't for God's grace, you would continue to be evil. And, of course, a lot of proof is given for that because they make up all these things that are sins, and then you sin all this, and you do this sin, and they're like, if you rationally look at it, well, that's just a human desire. By making a human desire a sin, you can make anything a sin, and you can just press the issue and go forward with it. So depression has been kind of a battle of mine all my life because of my religion. I want you to think about what the effect is on a psyche if you spend all of your time talking to that psyche and saying, you're no good, you're a piece of shit, you're garbage, you're a sinner, you're in the hands of an angry God, and if it wasn't for God's grace, you'd all be dead and burned to a crisp. And I think if you can understand that from the time of a little child, when you're 4 or 5 years old and your first memory is beginner class and your assembly is God's Sunday school, you begin to realize that reinforcement all your life, every preacher that preaches fire and brimstone, every person that takes you up to the altar for this Holy Ghost experience and all this other bullshit, you begin to realize that this is a heavy-duty, repetitive indoctrination. The reason people believe they're sinners is because they've been told they're sinners most of their life, and they either chose to believe it because they're old enough, or they're so young and impressionable, they have no way to think it through or fight it. I started to doubt the whole sin thing when I realized that sin could be made up. It took me from Bible college until about, 6 years ago in the pulpit, 6, 7 years ago. Shit, it's coming up on 7 years ago. Let me think about it. No, it's 2018. 2019, 20, 21, 22, 4 years ago. I'm standing in the fucking pulpit, and I realize that sin's made up. It's a completely made up thing by human beings that wrote the Bible. But people suffer and people do bad things. Okay, you don't read your Bible very well, because the biblical definition of sin is a transgression against the laws and commandments of God. That's what a biblical definition of sin is. Go to 1 John and read it for yourself. Okay? That's not empirically proven. That's just a bold-faced statement that I'm supposed to accept as fact without any evidence. Okay? The fact that there's people do bad things and there's suffering in the world is not a proof of sin. But when you accept that there's sins and you are a perpetrator of sin, and you sin in thought, word, and deed every day, and if it wasn't for the grace of God, you'd never get over it, you're going to start to feel really crappy about yourself, and you feel really good about this imaginary character you created known as God. And psychologically, that starts to make you feel really bad about yourself all the time. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so I lost track of the number of times I was crying at the altar over my sins and feeling really lousy. And that would lead to these experiences I have with God where I'd unburden myself and then I'd feel better for a while. And then somebody would come along and remind me I'm a sinner, and I'd read a passage in the Bible that reminded me I was a sinner, or, I'd do something wrong and somebody, my own thoughts would carry me down that path and I'd get depressed. And it's a cycle of getting over depression and then falling back into it because somebody tells you you're full of shit over and over and over, year after year after year after year. And you go from listening to it, to teaching it, to preaching it yourself. So when I talk about depression and what the cause of it is, it's the habitual feeling that I am no good that was instilled in me by my Christian religion that told me I was no good over and over again. That's what caused my depression and this cycle that I go through. And it pisses me off that people want to say, oh no, that's not what it is. Oh yes, it fucking is. Okay, my problem with the whole fucking thing is Christianity makes you feel lousy about yourself. There's no way to get around that shit. And then turns around and sells you a cure that you really don't need. I'm now pretty envious of a lot of my friends who didn't buy into this shit when they were young. And they enjoyed life as a young person. I was never allowed to enjoy life because I feel guilty about it. When people ask me what my main problem is, because I'm divorced. I've been that way for 6 months, and I don't really like to talk about it, but this is key and pivotal. My ex made the mistake of saying, she would say things like, I know that you think people don't love you. And I would no, you're wrong. And I said, it's not that I know people love me. I know my kids love me. I know my grandkids love me. I even know that you love me. And I will still love you even after all this is over, in a way. But that's not the issue. The issue has always been self-love. Because any self-love that I had was constantly kicked out of me by this message that you're a dirty, rotten sinner, and if it wasn't for the grace of God, you wouldn't be worth a shit. And then in gratitude, I'm supposed to give my life in service, and I spend 20 years in the ministry giving my life to service, and then I realize at a fateful day in somewhere in January of 2000 whatever, that it's all made up. Sin's made up. The salvation offered is made up. Hell is a made-up doctrine to keep people afraid. The Bible is so full of fucking holes, it's ridiculous. And it's flawed beyond belief. And yet somehow I gave myself to this. And you suddenly realize that from the time you were 8 years old, when you quote unquote gave your heart to Jesus at a kids' crusade during a vacation Bible school, to the time that you're standing there in a pulpit preaching on sin and realizing that it's bullshit, this is all time that you've dedicated to quote unquote the Lord that was stolen from you. Your most precious resource, time. And it pisses you off. I know some of you have just recently deconverted that are listening to my voice right now, and you're pissed. You're mad. And I'm going to tell you right now, the best thing you can do is do not act on this anger. Don't do it, because you will. if you're trying to get back at your faith, don't flip and do it. I was 3/4 years in the pulpit, probably less than 4 years, more than 3, as an unbeliever. 1 year as a deist and 2 years as an atheist. And I hated every moment of it. And I went through my year of anger about there being no God and that it was all a bunch of mythology and fairy tales about 2 years before I got out of the pulpit. And I could never show it, and I had to internalize it, and I had to eat it. And you know what? Looking back at it, it's probably the best thing that happened to me. Because if I had acted on some of that, everything would have been a whole hell of a lot worse. And I don't know how, but it would have been. So you need to take that anger and find an outlet for it, but don't lash out at the people you love and care for. You have to decide, and if you're like me, I made the decision that the people I love and care for are more important than being right. And that's a decision you still have to make, even though you know the truth about the mythology. Okay? Yes, they're Christians, and yes, they believe in fairy tales, and yes, they're wasting a lot of their time, money, and energy. I get it, and it hurts that you can't convince them, and it hurts that you want to convince them, and it depresses the fuck out of you. That's why I'm talking about this. You get depressed about it. Okay? I get it so much, man. I do. Don't act on the anger. Wait until you're no longer angry and you're more sad about it than angry. You have more pity than you do anger. Okay? When you reach that point, then you can start talking about it a little bit more without lashing out. And you need to understand that this also depresses you because you start thinking about, you can't help it. You're going to think about all the shit that you could have done if you hadn't believed in this fairy tale. All the things you could have done for your life, all the things you could have done for the people you loved and cared for. And it kicks the shit out of you. Now, for me personally, I began to deal with my depression before I left the faith, but I began to realize that what I needed more than anything was things to keep me busy that I could at least moderately enjoy so the depression didn't hit me as hard. Basically, I need a routine. I need things I do every day. I still have one. And throughout this whole time of depression, this is the only one I've been really able to maintain consistently. And that's making my bed every time I get up in the morning. Since I've been down in Texas, I've done that every day. I get up and I make my bed. And then at least I can say I did one thing and I accomplished one thing today that was decent, and that was make my bed. Still doing it. I'm really looking at the whole idea because I think I need to strengthen my habits. And my problem with developing habits is I never really saw what it took to make them. I have a vision for my life. There's like 5, 6 things I would love to pursue, and I can see it in my head, me achieving this, okay? I got another book, I can't remember who the authors are, Designing Your Life. And that has kind of helped me understand that you can have more than one option for your life. You don't have to be stuck on one. There's not one grand, glorious destiny for you. Even if there is, you would never know what it was. And so you can have different ways and prototype and try things out and do things. I mean, that's how I found the career of teaching is, I prototyped, I've been a subs teacher, dealing with the kids can be a pain in the ass sometimes, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's worth it. If you're the kind of person that doesn't need, immediate gratification all the time, and that you can be patient and know that because of the principles you're following, you're doing a good job, regardless of whether you get any feedback or not, you can be a teacher. Okay, because there's a pretty good chance you're not going to hear any of the good news about little Johnny or Jane until 5, 6 years after they've graduated. They'll come back to you and talk to you and say, "Hey, man, you were really an inspiration." That's when you get the warm fuzzies, but that's down the road. So there's that. But the real problem I had with depression and keeping my coping mechanisms in place is forming habits is a difficult thing. And I picked up a book recently, and I want to share this one because I think some of you that are deconverting need this to help you get through the deconversion process. It's called Atomic Habits, James Clear. I don't know what he is, whether he's a Christian or not, I don't care, but because what he says is dead on, okay? And the thing that he says, goals are great, having a vision is great, having a plan of how you're going to get the vision is great too. The real question, though, is what the hell are you going to do every single day to take steps towards that? And I'm going to tell you, I think that's the missing step for me. And once I read this book, I'm like, holy shit, this is what's missing. I've got prototypes of what I want to try out and see maybe that's for me. I still have, people go, Jesus said, shouldn't you be like getting into, fuck that last career shit. I kind of look at it and go, no. As long as I'm breathing, I want to be doing something. Okay, retirement just doesn't. The concept of just sitting back and doing nothing all day just fucking drives me nuts. Even though I do it a lot when I'm depressed. That's why I don't want to enter that. I think retiring would depress the hell out of you. It'd be the ultimate depressant. But what am I doing every day to get there? What do I need to do every day? And so establishing a morning routine that does more than just make my bed, establishing an afternoon routine when I get home from work, establishing a weekend routine. The little things that I do every day to get to where I need to be. That's what I'm trying to establish right now, getting my coping mechanisms so they're automatic. And part of it is make it easy. You probably noticed the bowl of fruit. I think it's a great example that James Clear gives. He says, I'd buy fruit intending to eat it, but I would leave it in the refrigerator in the crisper, and then it would rot before I'd get rid of it. He said, so I bought a bowl, put the fruit in the bowl, and put it someplace where I'd walk by it every day, and then it's something I'm eating the fruit. Make it easy. I've really enjoyed the Atomic Habits book, and I recommend it because I think for a lot of us that are deconverting, we need the automatic nature of habits to keep us from going stir crazy. Because a lot of who we are, a lot of the habits that we had as believers got ripped out of us. I don't go to church anymore. I haven't gone to church since March or May 24th, 2018, whatever. Sunday was the last Sunday in May. 25th or 26th probably, because there's 31 days. But that was the last day I was in church. I have not been in church since for a church service. I've gone to a couple weddings. I've gone to an anniversary party, but that's been about it. Church buildings are great places to hold gatherings, I guess. Don't read my Bible regularly every day anymore. Don't pray every day regularly. So all these habits, all this time that we used to spend as people that believed gets ripped out of us. What do we fill that with? And a lot of that formed our identity. And now we need new things to do habitually that forms our identity. And I think Atomic Habits kind of got me to see that this is the fucking last piece of the puzzle. And I read it right before I went home for Christmas break. And I think it was the mistake I made, is the timing. Because I went home to see my family, and I love them all to death. But it's awkward now. And I was trying to fight my depression off the entire time I was there, and it was really pissing me off because I really wanted to enjoy my grandkids when I'm home. Because I love those buggers, and all of them, we had all 7 of them together, all the grandkids, all my kids were home, all their significant others were with them, my ex-wife, my mother. You're all in the same building, all in the same house. And it should have been a real joyous thing for me, but I was fighting sadness the whole time, and it just pissed me off. Because this motherfucker depression, who I have nicknamed the Gray, it's there. I walk through it. I keep going. Depression never stops me from functioning as a human being. I can go to work, I can do things, I can come home, I can cook for myself, I can do a lot of things. What it fucks up is my enjoyment of life, and I stop communicating. And that's why I got to get back to YouTube, because I got to start communicating what I'm feeling and thinking. And if I can't talk to my therapist because they're not, licensed in Texas, I miss her something fierce because she's a great therapist. That young lady's going places. And I miss her. I miss talking to her every couple of weeks because it kept my head on the level. And if I can't talk to her, and therapy is fucking expensive even with insurance, and I just don't have the extra money right now. I'm too busy getting my life back in order after a divorce. So it's kind of like, fuck, what do I got to do now? You know, because I'm doing everything myself. And not having that person to rely on to do certain things is kind of kicking my ass at times, and I'm sure it's kicking my ex's ass too. You know, people ask me how I feel about her, and I says, well, I still care about her. I hope she does well in life. But I want somebody that when I'm facing the world's problems and depression is hitting me, I want somebody that I know has my back, and I just didn't feel that was there. I feel she was very hesitant having my back. When people ask me what I'm looking for in a female companion these days, well, one, you have to understand that I don't know if I'll ever get married again. I'd rather have somebody I consider more whatever a soulmate is. But the biggest quality they got to have is when the world is trying to crush us, we go back to back. And I watch her back and she watches mine. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. You know, and everything else is kind of, you know, practical considerations. I don't want kids. I'm sorry. I've done my duty. I've raised my 3 kids. I think they turned out great, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to tempt fate and fuck somebody else's kids up or my own. I'm too old for that. It would be irresponsible. There's also, you know, I don't know, you go to the top of the list if you knew about video editing technology to the point where you can make these videos look really great. I might marry you just for that. Some days, a few moments the last couple of weeks, I'm like, man, I really wish somebody could point the camera at me and do the recording, and I could do the scripting and all that stuff, and, you know, making it entertaining, and then somebody else could handle the technical shit. Oh yeah, I'd fall in love with them, and that would definitely pull me in. That's for sure. And so there's all of that, but when you're going through stuff like this, like a divorce and a career change, and you move halfway across the country, and there's a lot of stressors, there's a lot of depression triggers, routine becomes critical, and keeping your coping mechanisms in shape becomes critical. And I think the missing link for me was habits. I had all these old habits as a Christian, and now I've got to develop some new ones as just Ed Rabyd human being, and trying to make his way and enjoy life as much as possible before he kicks off and can't enjoy in life anymore because he won't be here, he won't exist. So I think that's it for my thoughts for this. I just want to thank everybody once again for stopping by. I appreciate every one of you. You know, hopefully I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself if you're not already. And thank you to all my Patreons. You can follow me on Facebook. Thank you for all the support. You even got a few messages. Hey, Ed, where are you at, man? And I appreciate that more than you know. You have no idea. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So thank you very much. Hopefully I can convince, this has been Ed Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist. Hopefully I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, once again, signing off and wishing you a good day.